Okay, before we hop into today's episode, I want you to just check in with yourself and see where you're at. Maybe you are doing the things, the calorie deficits, the workouts, maybe you're even cutting out sweets and treats and some of your favorite foods. You're doing everything that used to work for you, and the scale is just sitting there. Do you find yourself constantly grabbing convenience food or hitting the drive-through because of your busy schedule? Are you tired of your clothes not fitting and wish you felt more like yourself again? Does the word diet make you cringe because of past failed attempts that left you hungry and deprived? I'm Alisha, a wife, mom, fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle coach for women. After years of dieting, losing, and regaining the same weight, I realized I needed a new approach. I was burnt out from trying to be everything to everyone and chasing a number on the scale. To truly show up as the wife and mom I wanted to be and to finally find freedom in my health meant redefining my relationship to food, exercise, my body, and most importantly, to myself. I discovered the power of brain-based nutrition, fitness, habits, and routines to create a healthy lifestyle without restriction or deprivation. And now I'm excited to share everything I've learned with you. If you're ready to follow a simple brain-based nutrition and fitness plan built on habits and routines designed for busy moms and women, you're in the right place. Let's do this together. You're feeling a little bit discouraged and defeated about it. But here's what I want you to know before we go even one sentence further is that you are not broken. Your discipline and your willpower has likely not just up and vanished overnight. Your body did not stage this quiet rebellion against you personally. What has actually happened is your hormones have changed the rules of the game, and nobody sent you the new rule book, at least maybe not until today. You need to know that it's not willpower, it's your biology. So let's just call it what it is. Let's name the problem, because half of the battle is just realizing that you are not the only woman this is happening to. So if you're in your late 30s, your 40s, or your 50s, and the strategies that used to work for you have just stopped working, you are nowhere near alone in this. And there's real data to support what's happening for you right now. So it's not just like internet chatter or something that just sounds good and that's going to get a lot of likes. So when I say the majority of women in perimenopause report that their go-to fat loss strategies just stopped working the way that it used to, I'm not making that up. I'm not exaggerating that for effect. It's measured, it's documented, and it's real. So it's validating that there is this thing that's happening for women, and quite possibly it's happening for the one that's listening to this right now. Now, here's the part that can sting a little bit is that most of us were handed one playbook back in our teens, our 20s, and we were told to just kind of keep recycling it and using it over and over. And it's the eat less, move more, and just repeat until we get the results that we want. Nobody mentioned to us, or at least not until recently, that we might find ourselves in a place where that rule book is no longer working, where hormones have changed the game and what works actually needs to change as well. So what is actually happening inside your body? Now, here's where I come in, is I've coached enough women through exactly this stall to know that it's not a motivation problem. And I've watched the research catch up to where we are already seeing this in real bodies and real clients. It's not that your metabolism is broken, it's that the math of weight loss has changed. And most of the advice that's out there never really got the update. So let's pop the hood and actually look at the mechanism, because once you understand this, it can stop feeling like this mystery and it can start feeling like information you can actually use. Now, one thing I want to note here is that it's not that physics no longer applies, right? It's like if we are talking about weight loss, then yes, there is some energy balance that needs to happen if weight loss is what you're after. However, human bodies are not like that bomb calorimeter, right? It's not just this machine, and it doesn't always work so clean as calories in versus calories out. So here's the mechanism in plain English. Anytime you create this big calorie deficit, whether that's from cutting food, ramping up cardio, or even adding in a GLP-1 medication, your body doesn't pull weight exclusively from fat. So yes, it's going to pull from your fat stores, it's going to pull from your muscle, your bone, and it does that all at once. Now, how much of each of those things it pulls from depends mostly on how aggressive and how fast that deficit is. So this idea that to just like create this, if we want to lose weight and we want to lose it quickly, we just need to create a bigger deficit may not actually be the way to go about it. Now, there's a real randomized trial on exactly this. Women on a much more aggressive calorie cut lost roughly double the weight of women that took a more moderate approach, which sounds great until you see the rest of the data. So they also lost about 1.5 times more muscle and 2.5 times more bone density in the hip. Same pattern every time. So the faster and the harder the cut, so the more aggressive they were trying to lose the weight, the more your body's actually going to pull from muscle and bone right alongside fat. And there's a practical number that falls out of that research. Losing more than 14% of your body weight in 3 to 4 months tends to come with real measurable bone loss. Losing a more moderate, maybe 5 to 7% over about 6 months barely registers on the bone scan at all. So you still lost some weight if that was your goal, but it had a wildly different result on your body depending on how fast you got to those results. And here's the part that makes this specifically urgent if you are in perimenopause and not just generally kind of in that midlife-ish era. There's research showing that during menopause, your bone density can already be declining without you really even knowing. So even while your estrogen is still technically fine, simply because you're ovulating less often. So some of you are already maybe losing bone before you have even changed a single thing about your diet. Now, if we stack on an aggressive weight loss plan on top of that, we're not just starting from zero, we're already starting from kind of behind the start line from a deficit and adding just one more thing on top of it. And just so we're clear, because I know this could come up, this is not an episode dogging on GLP-1s. The mechanism is identical, whether that deficit comes from one of those weight loss medications, a plan that has you consuming most of your calories in a replacement shake, or just a super restrictive low-calorie diet. The drug is not the villain here. It's really more the size of the deficit and the speed of the weight loss that's of concern. GLP-1s are just like one avenue that people are using right now to maybe create that calorie deficit. So what's at stake? What are we risking if we really keep focusing on the scale and chasing the number regardless of the other implications? So what's actually on the line if we keep running this old playbook and we're just chasing the number, we're trying to lose weight or lose fat as fast as possible? Is you might in fact hit the number, but you could be trading crucial muscle and bone to get there. On top of the bone, you might already be losing from just your body going through natural hormonal shifts. So effectively, you're taking kind of a double hit. And the crazy thing is that it's invisible to us unless we're getting the DEXA scans and we're getting our bone density measured. That's not going to be something that shows up on the scale. We might see it later in life in our 40s, 50s, 60s, or beyond as fatigue or feeling frail and fragile. Maybe it's a fracture that takes way too long to heal, or, God forbid, we end up breaking in a hip or something like that down the road. So you might end up with a body that's lighter, but not actually stronger or healthier, because the scale does not measure any of those things long term. But here's the shift that I want to plant in your brain right now, because it can really change everything moving forward downstream. Is we stop asking, how do I lose weight? And instead, it's how do I protect what I already have and how do I build, right? So how do I get stronger? How do I build muscle? How do I build the bone? And I do truly believe that when we shift that focus there, our bodies are going to lose the fat and the weight that they need to be its healthiest. Now, this is something that's come up a couple of times in conversation recently with clients, is that I think a lot of times we have this idea about this number that our bodies should be. And we think that we should be able to, look this way or be at this weight. And the reality is that we might be able to reach it, but that might not actually be the weight or kind of the weight range where our body is really the healthiest and is going to thrive. I liken this a lot of times to if I was like, I want to be 5'8", I could want to be 5'8" all that I want to. But the reality is that there's really very little that I actually could do to reach that. Of course, people are going to be like, well, it's genetics. I do also think to a certain extent, genetics kind of determine like a person's natural weight range. Now, I'm not going to say like a specific weight, but, I do think that there's kind of this range that our body is just naturally designed to be within. And unfortunately, it's really easy to kind of shift that up. It's not as easy as we want it to be or as we think it should be to always shift that down to whatever that ideal number is. So when we kind of make that shift, it can change our entire strategy, our entire approach. It makes it feel less restrictive, less depriving. And so mentally, emotionally, and even physically, we're going to be able to stick with the lifestyle changes and the habits long enough to actually elicit the results that we want. Strength training and adequate protein does not just support weight loss, it actively is going to protect your muscle and your bone that the aggressive dieting and the aggressive weight loss approaches are putting at risk. The wild part is that fat loss still happens. So it just happens as kind of the side effect and not really the main event. So while your body composition is actually improving, it's not just shrinking and you're not pulling from muscle or the bone tissue. So this is what it really can look like when you are actually working with your biology and your body instead of fighting against it, is that you get the fat loss, you get to keep your muscle, you're protecting your bone. So it's probably likely the same goal that you maybe had. It's just going to have a wildly different outcome and take a completely different toll on your body. So, what does this actually look like? How do we take this and apply this moving forward? So, if we know that the aggressive dieting techniques and just trying to create this huge, massive caloric restriction isn't the answer, I mean, sure, it's going to maybe create the weight loss that you're after, but it's going to cause some net negative side effects that we do not want to be dealing with when we are older. So, how do we kind of navigate this? What do we do? Where do we go from here? So, like we already talked about, it's creating that mindset shift. That's one part of it, is instead of just focusing on chasing the scale, chasing the specific number pretty much at any cost, we move into more like, how can I support my body? How can I build the muscle? How can I protect the bone? That's going to require us to do things like resistance training, and we want it to be heavy enough that it's actually putting that stress on our bodies so that they have to adapt the stress on the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and the bones. So strength training is going to be absolutely a non-negotiable. Again, not turning those resistance sessions into cardio with weights. The next thing we're going to focus on is getting in enough protein. So, again, that kind of general guideline about a pound or a gram per pound of your target body weight is a great place to aim for. We know as we get older, we do actually need to have more protein. We need to eat more protein in order to get the same benefit. So just keep that in mind. If you're brand new to this, I know some of those numbers can look really scary. Even just aiming for 100 grams a day is a really great place to start. So we're working on our strength training, hopefully at least twice a week, full body is a great place to start. Getting in our protein, again, if we're brand new to this, 100 grams per day is a great first kind of milestone, and then slowly build that up to where you're around that 1 gram per pound of your target body weight. We want to also focus on our recovery here. So sleep, rest, recovery is also going to be really important to help build the muscle and to help even protect the bone, right? We want to make sure that we are fueling overall with enough food. So it's not just about hitting the protein, but it's about making sure we're getting adequate fat coming in from things like avocado, fish, nuts, seeds, those kinds of things. And then that we are also fueling with enough carbohydrates to, again, give our body what it needs to support all of the tissue, all of the function. So that's going to be another thing here. Instead of taking such an aggressive approach to weight loss and really just trying to get as much of a deficit as possible, a way to kind of flip that, and at least a good starting place would be, is if you can kind of figure out what your maintenance calories are. There's a ton of calculators out there. One that I recommend is the Precision Nutrition Macro Counter or Macro Calculator. We can link to that in the show notes. But you want to figure out, like, what is your maintenance right now? So if you're going to maintain your weight, what is that? And instead of taking a huge deficit from there, we're going to work on just adding more movement. So that's not necessarily adding in more intense weight training sessions or more cardio or more boot camps, but that is just maybe more natural movement. So whether that's walking, playing at the park with your kids, maybe taking a bike ride, just what are some ways that instead of decreasing the calories, we're just actually increasing the amount that we're burning throughout the day. Now, the trick here to not trigger some of those side effects that we get a lot of times with the extreme dieting, like the cravings, being hungry all the time, getting cranky and being super moody, not recovering. We don't want to engage in activities that are going to trigger some of those hormonal responses, which is why I'm saying we don't want to try to increase our calorie burn by adding in more intense exercise and activity. Doing things that kind of fly under the radar with your metabolism is going to really be the sweet spot. That's why the walking, the gentle bike rides, even just playing with your kids, those are not going to mess with your hormones enough to drive up hunger, drive up cravings. A lot of those things that we notice when we are too restrictive with our food, or we're in too much of a deficit by not getting in enough food and then trying to increase the calorie burn. So again, instead, it's going to be a moderate approach, the Goldilocks effect. We're not going to go for too much. We're not going to go for too little. We're trying to find what is that just right, that sweet spot for your specific body and your goals. Now, quick recap before we go. I want you to just remember that this is not a willpower issue, right? This is not a failure on your behalf. It really is biology. And the fast, aggressive weight loss strategies, the deficits, those are going to, yes, they're going to pull from fat, but remember, they're also going to be pulling from your bone and your muscle right along with it. And the more aggressive we go with that, it tends to be more of the muscle and the bone that it's pulling from and less of the fat, especially once we kind of enter into that perimenopause phase. That might already be quietly pulling your bone density as well in the background without you even knowing it. So remember, the fix is not to just do a more extreme, more restrictive plan or approach, even if that's what worked for you in your 20s. It's really to shift into more of that. How do we protect? How do we build? Through the strength training, through the protein, through taking a more moderate approach. And instead of just reducing what we're eating, it's trying, how do we stay at that maintenance? And then instead of taking a big reduction in calories, we just try to increase a little bit of activity, get a little bit more calorie burn through activity that's not going to trigger that hunger response. So remember, this is going to maybe take a little bit longer than you want it to. This is going to be, one of those things that you really got to work on your mindset around, because there's been years of that old diet nonsense that's been out there that we've just been inundated with since we could really start to kind of understand and make sense of the world. So lean into it, be patient, trust the process. So if this is landing for you and you are ready to stop guessing and actually start building a plan that is going to work for you, your body, and your life where you're at, there's a couple different ways that we can work together. One is our low commitment fit and fueled foundation. So this is really just kind of the next step. You can start taking what you're learning here and putting it into practice. We'll have the link for that down below in the show notes. And if you are ready for maybe more coaching, more support, more accountability, then that is why we have the Fit and Fueled method. And you can also find the link to that below so you can check out all the good stuff, figure out what is going to be the best for you in this season. And of course, if this episode blessed you, if it encouraged you, please do share this out or consider leaving us a review. That's going to help us get this episode in front of more women. So just keep in mind, remember, it's not always about, how fast can we get there and doing the extreme things. I want you to really think about the tortoise and the hare. We want to be in this for the long haul, which means we're going to maybe have to take a step back and learn how to do it a little bit differently. Until we meet again next week, I hope you have a great rest of your day, an amazing week, and I'll talk to you then. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to The Strong Her Way. If you're ready to redefine your relationship with food, exercise, and yourself, remember, it's all about building habits and routines that fit into your busy life without restriction or deprivation. I hope today's episode inspired you to take the next step on your journey to a healthier, happier you. Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you found this helpful, please leave a review and share it with other women who need a little extra encouragement. Together, we can all become stronger. Until next time, stay strong and keep moving forward.